us. Tarnished, are we? Come to the lands between for the Elden Ring? Of course you have. No shame in it.
The wait for From Software's newest Soulsborne title, Elden Ring, has been a long one. The studio's last release was the phenomenal Sekiro Shadows Die Twice all the way back in 2019, and the original reveal of Elden Ring was at E3 that same year. After the initial reveal, hyped fans had to wait long stretches of time for any more news. The game repeatedly topped most anticipated lists across the industry, the game's subreddit went feral waiting for the slightest drop of information, and now its release is upon us. But in the end, was it all worth it? The short answer is yes. So if that's all you needed, subscribe, leave a comment saying yay, and get on out of here. Jokes aside, Elden Ring has most definitely been worth the wait. From Software pioneered the Soulsborne genre, and has remained its king ever since. Other studios have tried to carve out their own niche within it, and some of them have been successful, but none have been able to find the acclaim or perfection that characterizes From Software's titles. This has made From's entries in the genre feel like colossal industry events. Not everyone will play Elden Ring, but they will undoubtedly still be subjected to the inescapable wave of discussions and memes surrounding its release. Despite From Software's output largely being confined to this genre since the meteoric success of 2011's Dark Souls, each of their entries builds upon those that came before it, making them not only feel cohesive, but allowing them to evolve as well. Elden Ring's primary evolution from the titles that came before it can best be summarized by the question, what if it was open world though? When it was revealed that Elden Ring was aiming for an open world structure, I was slightly hesitant. In recent years, I've grown extremely tired of open world games that have a map filled with icons to check off for no reason other than completion. I've become bored with the idea of exploring every nook and cranny of empty maps with copy-pasted enemy encounters. I shouldn't have worried though, because after all, this is From Software we're talking about. In fact, Elden Ring is the opposite. It is effectively a Dark Souls game, but just exceptionally larger. Every location in the game is interesting. They brim with character, have well-tailored encounters, unique loot and resources to find, and surprises hidden just beneath the surface. Elden Ring is split into areas that feel much more akin to a traditional Soulsborne game, with tight branching progression, and much larger sections that encourage players to freely explore. These open areas are where Elden Ring's unique identity within the genre is carved out. Players now have a horse that they can summon at any time to cover its vast distances, as well as a map to keep track of not only where the grace is gently suggesting they go, but also the distinct locations they have already cleared. Each of those locations is effectively a dungeon, with units patrolling their layouts. The open nature of the world allows players to approach them with a new level of freedom for From's games. Players can sneak through the camp like in Sekiro, engage enemies from afar with a bow and arrow or magic spell, or charge in with a massive sword to take on the horde all at once. However, some of these locations are a bit spoiled by the fact that the enemy's AI is a little too basic for the amount of space allotted them. This makes clearing those locations very easy in an anticlimactic way. Meanwhile, the more restricted areas feel like a natural progression from where the studio left off in Dark Souls 3. They frequently are not as open as in Sekiro, but feature more of the tight corridors, sly shortcuts, and verticality of the Dark Souls series. There's plenty of variety, and each area is filled with life and unique visuals. From a throne room with limbs dangling from the ceiling above a shambling mini-boss to the obligatory poison swamp, every player will be able to find an area in Elden Ring that takes their breath away with its beautiful but dour character. Like all of From's games, Elden Ring's setting is also where much of its narrative and lore is delivered. Elden Ring's world was written by acclaimed fantasy author George R.R. Martin, with the development team then building upon his groundwork to make the actual story. The combination of the two is a massive success. The story is delivered a bit more explicitly than fans may be used to, but its world is still filled with secrets and mysteries to uncover through item descriptions, environmental storytelling, and cryptic conversations with NPCs. The game is set in a world known as the Land Between, where players control a warrior known as the Tarnished. The Land Between has fallen under the control of the powerful offspring of a deity known as Queen Marika the Eternal. After the shattering of the titular Elden Ring that was once wielded by the Lord of the Land, the offspring each took control of a shard and used their power to claim part of the Land Between for themselves. As the Tarnished, players have to follow the guidance of the mystical power known as Grace to rebuild the Elden Ring and rise to rule the land as the new Elden Lord. Creating your own Tarnished begins with From's signature character creator that allows players to build characters from the subtly unique to the incredibly grotesque. Elden Ring also gives players a selection of starting classes that determine their beginning stats and equipment. There are more than previous titles, with all of them combined covering nearly every possible playstyle. From there is a skippable tutorial, and then players are let out into the world to find their way. As you make your way throughout the world, you'll come across strange characters with unique requests or goods to sell, collect materials to craft items like fire bombs, and we'll get into plenty of combat. Combat functions as fans will expect, but is expanded in every aspect. There is still the delicate balance of stamina management and drinking from flasks to refill your focus and health. There are still sorceries and incantations, read miracles, to perform based on one's stats and myriad equipment options that can entirely transform one's playstyle. The magic options in Elden Ring are particularly expanded to give you more. Sorceries and incantations alike have options to cover every boss or situation, and each is as flashy and beautiful as the last. For weapons and equipment, there is a spectrum of options. There are two-handed and one-handed weapons like greatswords and claws. Armor has different weight values to balance, but there are also two new additions in weapon arts and talismans. Talismans offer buffs to unique actions to tailor your playstyle, like increasing the stagger effect of jump attacks or dealing more damage with heavy attacks. These are found throughout the world, and finding a new one always opens one's mind to the possibilities for different approaches. Weapon arts, however, is a new system that allows players to modify the special moves of their weapons and shields. These can be swapped out at any site of grace and give players who aren't interested in magic something to use up all of their focus on. There is again a lot of variety here, with some being a lot more useful than others. But they are a very interesting fold in the Soulsborne formula that it is hard to imagine future entries without. There are also two key moves that have been added to the player's kit when it comes to combat. One is a jump attack. By jumping in the air and using a heavy attack, players can come down with their weapon in a block-breaking move that is perfect for getting through an enemy's shield or starting an encounter. The second is a relatively fast, strong slash that can be performed just after blocking an incoming attack with your shield. This move helps stagger enemies, giving you space to either heal, set up a backstab, or deliver another big move. While these two may seem like small additions, they do wonders to help give melee players tools to be more aggressive in combat, rather than playing as reactively as they have in the past. One of the best aspects of Soulsborne games, however, is that the enemies one fights are nearly just as interesting as the world they inhabit, and Elden Ring is no different. Every region of the lands between has its own unique denizens that fit in with the setting. The cast of enemies somehow manages to keep the game filled with interesting new movesets to learn, encounters to puzzle your way through, and a distinct style while all feeling cohesive. Whether you're fighting the armor-clad knight, large birds with blades for legs, or a man corrupted until he has a fleshy scorpion tail, it all just feels right. And all those three are just in the first section of the game. The inclusion of the horse also brings new combat and enemy options with it in the form of Colossus enemies. Towering behemoths are nothing new to From Software's Soulsborne titles, but in Elden Ring they are bigger and more impressive than ever before. The massive turtle with a bell hanging from its underbelly quickly became anticipated from the game's trailers. But there are plenty more than just that, and winding back and forth between their legs to chip away at their health while you serpentine around the surrounding fields is a great new way to experience Soulsborne combat with impressive scale. That scale also benefits a lot by just how gorgeous of a game Elden Ring is. From's titles have always had fantastic art designs that manage to find beauty in their desolate isolation. However, Elden Ring takes things to a whole new level by matching the studio's peerless and unique visual design with fantastic technical elements as well. Not only does the game perform incredibly well, it never crashed or stuttered below 60 FPS while I played, but it also features an incredible amount of detail and effects. Almost immediately I was taken away by how great the physics on my character's starting cape looked as it reacted to my turns. Once I got into the open world, the glistening gold tree that towered over the land froze me as I stopped to just soak it in. The draw distance of the open areas is fantastic at communicating its scale, and every enemy, piece of equipment, and environment is filled with intricate details. None of the world in Elden Ring feels copied and pasted or hastily implemented. It is no surprise that the game took as long as it did when compared to its peers, as just the unique assets, animations, and intricacies spread throughout the experience is an impressive amount of content all on its own. Elden Ring also introduces some new quality of life features that many fans will likely welcome with open arms. These include summoning pools to help one find co-op partners easier, the craftable consumables, and a grace path that helps nudge players in the right direction if they are looking for it. It would be nice if the developers had introduced some more accessibility or difficulty options so that more players could enjoy the journey it offers, but even as it stands, it may very well be From's most accessible game without compromising on its infamous difficulty. Thanks for checking out our review of Elden Ring. If you want to keep in touch with our reviews, make sure to subscribe, or check out our website for more on games, movies, TV, anime, comics, manga, you name it.